How's it going, everybody? Hope y'all are doing well. So this is kind of a tabletop review or overview of something that I hope you guys find pretty interesting, which is a decade's worth of everyday carry blades. And what I mean by that is every year for the last decade, I have progressed into a new knife, and I've used it very harshly and hard. And I want to talk about the real world use that I've had with each one of these knives. So that's kind of what we're going to go over. For instance, this is a Benchmade. This is 2013 when I picked it up, and you can kind of see how beat this blade is. I mean, it's not miserable, but you can definitely tell this thing has been used and abused. So that's what I want to talk about, is the real world aspect of actually carrying a specific blade for 1 year, and we're going to do that over the last decade of me carrying them. So let's push into that particularly. So the first specific blade, and I carried this longer than probably 5 years prior to 2010, which this is an old timer. This is a 3-blade old timer, and kind of how I got into carrying knives is I worked on a farm quite a bit when I was younger, and my uncle came out to me and says, hey, can you cut this real quick? It was like a piece of baling wire that got wrapped up in an axle. And I said, I don't have a knife on me. So he kind of, not a lecture, but he told me, hey, if you're working on a farm, you need to have a knife. You need to have something mainly for protection, as in, if you get wrapped up into something, you need to be able to cut your way out of it, or just have it for everyday use. So he handed me this knife, different knife, of course, same model, and said, here, you can use this for the time being. Go out and get your own. So I went out immediately and purchased this knife and ran with this knife for about 5 years. Really enjoyed this knife, really stuck with me for a while. About 2011, I transitioned, and even before, I've had this knife longer than that, but 2011 I really heavily carried this, and I upgraded to a 250T, which is a very nice knife, and you can kind of see how used this blade actually is. Skinned quite a few deer and other animals with this in the time that I used it. Really enjoyed it. Kind of a bigger knife though, honestly. And at the time I was young and thought, a bigger knife just means I'm cooler. So that's honestly what I was ending up carrying. So at this point in time, I enlisted in the military right around the very end of that year. So I had to transition to something else, which was more of a tactical blade. At least I thought in my mindset. And this is a paramilitary 2, a Spyderco paramilitary 2. Awesome, awesome blade. Really like it. Honestly, this is one of my favorite knife designs still to this day, even after we get into all these other knives that I'm going to show you over the years that we've progressed through. So 2012, I purchased this. As you can see, it's reasonably well used. This was mainly my training knife. I was in training for quite a while in that year, and then I went operational as well. So this knife is really nice. You can get high up into it. I was very surprised I didn't snap off the tip. Believe it or not, I always thought this was kind of delicate for the knife. You're not going to be prying paint cans or anything with it because it'll snap off super quickly and whatnot. But I mainly use the belly of the blade. And I also like that liner lock kind of in the back, which is really nice. Thumb hole, easy to deploy, and then one-handed, easy to put away. So that was 2012 for myself. 2013, moving into that, I went with a Benchmade 5051, and this is an auto knife with the safety in the back. So you can just, push the button and it flips specifically out. I carried this knife very heavily. I was going through, training and operational aspect and deployment with this knife overseas. Yes, I get it. Auto, they're like, how'd you get it overseas? Well, you can get knives overseas. It's hard getting them back. You need the proper paperwork, which at the end of my deployment, I did the proper paperwork for this and got it back. But I really used the crap out of this knife. As you can see, this thing is just everywhere you look has some kind of nick, dent, something in it. This is all worn off. Really enjoyed this knife. Pretty expensive at the time too. This was a $280 knife for myself. Being in the military, only making about $690 a paycheck. This was pretty solid of a purchase for me and very large at the time, but still to this day, really like this knife, really enjoy it. So that was 2013. Let's progress to the next year, which this is 2014, of course, and this is a Spyderco Manix 2 lightweight. As you can see, the lightweight, they do make a heavyweight, or the original, which is much heavier, and I really enjoyed this for the weight aspect. This is a pretty beefy knife, honestly. It's pretty heavy for what it is, and I wanted to go to something lightweight. Looked around, and I found this one for a reasonable price. This was about $70 at the time. Obviously, $280 back here, and then this was about $140 if I recall the paramilitary too. So this $70 knife at the time was very nice, and this is kind of a collector's piece, I guess, now, but really cool. I like the wire clip. Surprised I didn't break it off. Really resilient. You can kind of see the blades a little scratched up and whatnot because I did use it quite a bit. Really good knife for 2014. Pushing over to 2015, I kind of stuck with a kind of thick knife and went with a zero tolerance 350T. This is an auto assister, so you just hit the back, flips up. I really enjoyed the blade style on this, and you can kind of see a lot of wear in here, and then the edges of the clip. Did not like the clip on it. It did not have a deep enough carry, and this would often flip out because it was so beefy. Got to remember where the liner is. There we go. Haven't used it in a while. So it's really beefy, and I didn't like that it stuck so much out of my pocket. It would actually flip out or flip a lot, and it was very thick. So keys and other things in here, I didn't really like how thick it was, but nevertheless, I carried it for a year and then transitioned to something else. Also, I really like the coloration on the blade. Very cool. Zero Tolerance is a pretty good knife manufacturer, and I really enjoy them. After that, I progressed to something a little bit skinnier, and I went to the Spyderco Tenacious. This is a $40 blade. This is not really expensive by any means, and I really enjoyed this particular knife. You can kind of see how worn, at least the blade isn't too bad, but the G10 scales are really worn down, and it's really dirty and whatnot, but really enjoyed this blade as well. So this is a really good one. I've actually purchased this particular blade for my father. He's a tradesman, and he really uses the crap out of this knife, and I'll throw in some photos probably up here showing how, you know, seriously used and whatnot. And for $40, this is an outstanding blade, and I would highly recommend it if you don't have $280 or, you know, $250 or however much they're going for. Definitely a Spyderco Tenacious is on that particular list. Let's progress these up a little bit more. So that was 2016. Moving on to 2017, going back to Benchmade. This is Benchmade Triage right here. So really cool knife. I'm in the law enforcement-based community and whatnot, and that's kind of my job. So I wanted something, kind of a tool to assist me in that. I really enjoyed the blade of this. Did not break it. Still has good access lock, or at least the access lock is still really good, real tight. I really enjoyed how it kind of slopes down because you can get up underneath things like clothing and whatnot if you need to, and not be worried about stabbing people or other things. Kind of a stout blade too, so you don't have to worry about snapping it. Cool thing is it has a seatbelt cutter. I have used it, but honestly I end up forgetting about it in the moment, and I always go to the serrations instead if I need to cut a seatbelt. Does have a glass breaker. Did specifically use that a few times, and just, I mean, just for information, if you do use it, use the corner of the window. Don't go to the center of the window. That's how you get your wrist cut up with glass, because when you punch through it, all the glass goes there and cuts into your hand. So go down by the corner, and you go on the edge so you don't punch through the full window with your arm. Kind of random tip there. Didn't learn from experience. I witnessed it happen. So ever since then, I was kind of understanding of that. So pushing on from there, this was a 2017 blade. 2018, I got a different job in saltwater. So I was a marine patrol, or on a law enforcement based watercraft in the ocean. And I knew none of these blades could handle the hardship of actually saltwater. So I looked for a knife, and this is the Pacific Salt in H1 steel. And this is an outstanding blade for saltwater use. I have dove with this knife, search and rescue, been in and out of saltwater more times than I can count, riding on a boat an entire year, and there is zero rust on this blade, and it is fairly well worn. You can see all of it, all the scratches, and where it's, just sustained so much just abuse. And I hard use this knife. Still has a really good lockup. And honestly, if you look close, you can see all the scratches actually in, the takedown. And that's because sand would actually get inside. And every time you push this thing down, it would just grit together. So really, really resilient knife. I really enjoy this knife. I would highly recommend if you're doing any type of water-based operations, not even saltwater, but just water in general, this knife will hold through, and it's got a really nice design to it. So that was 2018. 2019, I deployed again for my third time, and I transitioned to the Benchmade Bugout. Awesome, crazy lightweight knife. I did not need the saltwater capabilities because I was going back to the Middle East, and I wanted something crazy, stupid lightweight, but something enough to get the job done. And this blade definitely does it. You can see there's some wear around the pocket clip. This one wears really well, and it was so small and so lightweight, it didn't really sustain too much damage. Not like the beefier knives, like over here, you can see how much use and abuse they have. I think it's mainly because it's a larger knife and would get banged around quite a bit. This one held up very well. Highly recommended. Benchmade Bugout is 1.9 ounces, which is insane. So I carried that all through 2019. Just at the very end of 2019, I thought I lost this particular knife, and I rebought another one because I thought it was gone. This was my 2020 blade. This is one that I carried, same exact blade, but in 2020, and it's in blue. Still, outstanding knife. Like I said, the same aspect of this, just carried this one for an entire year. Ended up finding this one, which was crazy. I don't know how it got there, but I found it, and I was pretty ecstatic now. So then, now I have two. And now for this year. We just transitioned into the new year, and I want to progress to another knife. Now, this is kind of a Hall of Fame knife that everyone has been talking about for a while. Honestly, it's an older design. This is a Benchmade Osborne 940. So I figured I would give it a try. So many people have told me I need to give this a try. Now, it's going to be hard coming from the Bugout and going to the Osborne, in my opinion, because it's a little bit heavier, but I really enjoy the blade profile so far. Haven't had it too long, so I can't really give you hard data on this particular blade. But coming up, I'm going to do an entire year's worth of testing for this, and then I'll probably do a separate review. I do have a separate review on the Benchmade Bugout as well, after like a pre-deployment and then an after-action report with this particular blade. So if you want to actually hear more about the Benchmade Bugout, definitely I'll throw that in the description below. Go check it out. I have a lot of good videos and footage of deployment on there. So this is what I'm transitioning to as of now, which is the 940 Osborne. We will see how this goes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this particular kind of view. I have some other knives. I wanted to go over, defensive blades and other stuff like that I carried over the years, but the video's getting a little bit long, and we'll probably save that for another day. So if you guys enjoy this kind of stuff, real world aspect of I've actually carried these and my input, that's what I try to do throughout my entire videos, is a real world aspect, not what people pay me, which no one pays me to do this. I'm not rich on YouTube. I don't even make money off of YouTube at this point in time. So this is all my opinion, and I don't want to be bought off. So I want to give you guys true, legitimate facts, and that's my goal. And if you guys enjoy that kind of stuff and want to see more upcoming, definitely hit the like, hit the subscribe, comment what is your favorite knife that you carried. Helps the YouTube algorithm out, and I really want to hear y'all's opinions. So I hope y'all have a great day.